Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Great to see everyone here. It is Monday, December the 9th, 2026. I'd like to call to order the Strategic Planning Committee meeting for the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. And if is could, we will begin, and if you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hey, Chair Gallardo, thank you, and not to interrupt, but just for the record, noting it's February 9th. I think you mentioned December, but that's okay.
Felt like December. It's awfully cold out.
It's the weather.
Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you would begin with the roll call.
Thank you. Director Desmond?
Here.
Dowden Calvillo?
Present.
Jennings? Absent. Kennedy?
Here.
Kozlowski? Absent. Sander?
Here.
Soon?
Here.
Vierkamp?
Here.
Villegas?
Here.
Vice Chair Bradford?
Here.
And Chair Gallardo.
Here. But first, most important as it is February, thank you. I just want to say I am so pleased with this team. Thank you so much for everybody. I think this is a group of rock stars. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm really excited. We've got a lot this year. Oh, thank you. Well, we've got a bunch this year. It's going to be pretty exciting, but we've got the team in place to do it. So thank you to everyone. Next up on our agenda item is public communications. It's an opportunity for anyone to speak on any item that is not on our agenda. We would not be able to engage in a conversation, but do we have any public comment?
There's no public comment.
All right. That makes it easy. Next up is disclosures. Does anyone have anything they feel they need to disclose? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on to our first of three information items. And our own Lynette Espinoza is going to talk to us about Senate Bill C-707.
Thanks, Chair Gallardo. I just actually wrote the cover item, so our General Counsel, Mike Mauer, is online, and he's actually going to speak to that for us.
We see you now, Mike. Welcome.
Thank you, Lynette. Hi, Chair. Hi, Committee. So this should be a pretty straightforward item. We would be looking for a bit of direction on this. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so there's a little bit of direction we're looking for on this because it's potentially something that could come back to the full board with a resolution. So SB 707 is the new bill you've probably heard about that makes some changes to the Brown Act. The first thing I will say is for some of your cities and counties, this bill may have different impacts. It does contain requirements for certain cities and counties to allow for remote participation in meetings and some language access rules and other things. Those particular provisions only apply to cities and counties and some very large special districts. They don't apply to SACOG. So I've had some confusions. I've given this presentation to a few different agencies. I just wanted to clarify that off the bat. What we're really looking at here is the provisions that affect teleconferencing or virtual remote meetings. Even though we have Zoom, the Brown Act still uses the term teleconferencing. Even with this new update, it still refers to it as teleconferencing. So just when I say that, it doesn't mean it has to be on a telephone. It could be on Zoom. The two things I really want to highlight is SB 707 contains two new opportunities to appear virtually or appear by telephone. The first is for an eligible multi-jurisdictional body, and that means a JPA or any other body where different cities and counties appoint the board members. So SACOG fits that profile. What it allows for a multi-jurisdictional body is that up to twice a year, a member of the board, if they have to travel 20 miles or more to the physical meeting location, can simply meet from home, from wherever they are, without having to post their location. So kind of similar to the just cause rule that everyone's gotten a little bit used to. But you don't have to have just cause. You don't have to have a reason. You just have to be able to let Lynette know before the agenda posts, because the agenda has to say, Chair Gallardo will be appearing remotely. So we do have to be able to say that. We have to be able to post on the agenda, but you don't have to give a location. You don't have to have a reason. The catch there is the 20-mile travel. The law doesn't provide any specifics on how that works, whether that's home, business, whether it applies if you're already traveling. So we look for some measure of good faith there, but at the very least, we do have a decent contingent of our board who has to travel 20 miles or more to SACOG's office, and this provides an opportunity for them to be able to appear remotely. In order to use this, the SACOG board would have to adopt an authorizing resolution. So that's why I indicate we want some direction from this board if it's something that comes back to SACOG. There's another new option under SB 707, which is for eligible subsidiary bodies. And all that is a fancy way to say advisory committees. So if it's an advisory committee that doesn't take actual action, under this new rule, the entire committee can appear remotely. As long as there's a physical location that the public can show up at. There doesn't have to be any committee members there. This wouldn't apply to the SACOG board. Theoretically, it could apply to SACOG committees, but there's a handful of carve-outs for the types of committees that maybe it doesn't apply to. But the big carve-out is it doesn't apply to elected officials serving in their official capacity. So it doesn't say what that means, what the official capacity is. I think you could argue that means if it's like a subcommittee of one of your city councils, then as a city council member, you couldn't appear remotely. But I don't know how it applies when you're another step removed like SACOG is. That being said, my recommendation would be for the board not to adopt this option at this time, but to keep it as something we could do in the future. It just seems to me with the lack of clarity and given that all of you are elected officials, it would be better to see how it plays out first. Theoretically, if we had a Brown Act committee that was composed of members of the public, volunteers, it's something we could authorize for them. There's some other nuance to it, some other steps, but that's the general overview. And then I won't go through it in detail, but there are just some minor tweaks that SB 707 made to all of the existing remote meeting options that we have. So I've included those in the staff report. They're really just for information. I don't need to go through each of them. The one I will highlight, though, is it used to be that you could only have a fully remote meeting if the governor declared a state of emergency. Similar to the pandemic, you could then move online. SB 707 allows it if it's a locally declared emergency. So it is just something to keep in mind, if we're ever in an unfortunate situation where one of our members has a locally declared emergency, we could look to that aspect of it. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions, but would be looking for some direction from the board on this new 20-mile rule and if that's something we'd like to implement. One last thing I meant to add on that I forgot to mention is if we take a resolution to the board could decide the parameters on how they would allow it. One thing I would ask this committee to consider is whether that's something you would allow for the remote offsite board meetings that we have around the region. And I think it may be worth considering not allowing it for the remote meetings, only because I think the point of those is to get everyone together. And I wouldn't want to set up a situation where, the meeting that we had in Wheatland recently would be an opportunity for a lot of our board to be able to use this exception. But that's not why we're meeting up in Wheatland. We're meeting up in Wheatland so everyone can get there. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think it is something that's worth bringing up and getting some feedback from this board on. So with that, Chair, I'll turn it back to you. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions? Yes.
No,
Commissioner
well, actually, I
Brady.
guess I do have one question and then some comments. So if I'm understanding correctly, if the board were to move forward or the committee were to recommend and the board were to move forward and pass a resolution in support of this, those who are 20 miles away or more essentially would have the flexibility to have 4 times a year if situations worked out. So in other words, you could do 2 just cause and 2 20 miles away. So I guess I'm just wanting confirmation that it's in total, if the situation warrants one or the other or either, I guess, right?
Emergency also.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. It would be one or the other, so it would give you potential up to 4 times per year, and that's based on it's based on the number of meetings you have. So like for your city council or your board of supervisors who meets weekly or every other week, you could actually have it more, but it says 2 times a year if you meet once a month. I also would say it's 2 times per year per body that you sit on. So you theoretically could do twice a year for this committee and twice a year for the board. Um, Again, you could put more restrictive parameters around that if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I think it's important to be here, even though I'm more than 20 miles away, and I would certainly plan to be here at all meetings, but I like the flexibility that this provides. I think particularly the 20-mile rule. One thing that isn't covered by Just Cause that's often frustrating for me is vacation. If I am out of town on vacation and I wish to participate remotely, I have no way to do that other than put my location on the agenda, which sometimes you can do, sometimes you can't do. You might be moving, you may not be in a physical location that you can note on the agenda. And I believe that this gives that flexibility for board members who would want to use that. I would assume that if they were on vacation more than 20 miles away from the SACOG office, one would reasonably could claim that they're 20 miles away and therefore that would apply. So anyway, I think it's a great idea for added flexibility. I definitely think we should encourage board members to attend in person if at all possible, though, and not use it as kind of a, hey, I'm 20 miles away. I don't want to drive in. So.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Chair. I agree. I think that it would be advantageous to have it as a tool. I did support, I think, what you had indicated about maybe not adopting a policy with regards to the, our offsite meetings. I think the whole purpose is to visit that particular location and to get a feel for it. So I think that it's, I don't have any problem with just laying low on that aspect, but moving forward with the ability to telecommute, if you will, for the 20 miles or out when necessary, or, also inclement weather. If you know that, there's a huge, storm coming in, that would also enable somebody to participate remotely as well in anticipation of that. So I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yes. Director Barrios.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. So Lynette, in terms of the actual posting of the agendas, do you, is it your intent to then remind folks if you are gonna request one of the options available to us, that there's a certain cutoff date? Only because the next year for me is gonna be uncertain in terms of my whereabouts, given family situations. So I just want to make sure that I'm complying with the piece that you'll have to manage, which is making sure that it gets included as part of the agenda.
If board members would like a reminder when for instance, the agenda packet is sent out, what that deadline would be, I can include that.
Well, I don't want to create any extra work. If you're already posting the agenda on a date certain in advance, I know the Board of Supervisors, we have draft postings and then there's changes and there's a lot of iterations of it. And so if you've already got a set date by which you do it, I don't need to have extra work done for me. I'll just note that the date's going to be certain days and we'll put that in the calendar.
Okay, great. I'll send out a communication just so it's clear about what our timeline preference would be.
Great, thank you.
Well, and you'll already have a little bit of extra work to remind, to keep track, to make sure somebody doesn't go over the 2 times. Yeah, and I'm in the same thought. I think it's a great opportunity for when it comes up. And you're right. I think vacation or big rainstorm and somebody might be concerned about the drive. It might not be an emergency. That's a great opportunity. I do agree on our visits, our site visits. Everybody needs to be there. It's the point of why we're doing the site visits, so we can learn about those. So I think I appreciate Mike, your suggestions. I think that falls in line with where we're at. You don't need action for us to take it to direction to say, take it to the full board.
I'll defer to James and Eric. Are you guys comfortable with that direction and bringing it back?
Yeah, we just wanted to get a discussion here. This is really the point of the strategic planning committee. And then based on your feedback, we would set up an action item for the board.
And so given that this, we're going to be offsite in March, our plan from logistics was to have this go into effect in April. So we'll work on a draft resolution and bring that back to the full board.
Well, going back to my non-adversarial bargaining days, everyone comfortable with the All right, if you would, and I should ask, is there any public comment on this
There's
information
no
item?
public comment.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, and nice to see you remotely. That's one.
I'm just happy it worked. So we checked that box. So thank you all.
Sorry, couldn't resist. All right, next up, Casey is going to talk to us about meaningful engagement.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gallardo. Good afternoon, members of the committee. So I don't remember if it was January or December, but at the time, Director Soon was the chair who brought up that there will be a theme of meaningful engagement in 2026 for the board. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today with the Strategic Planning Committee. And it's really great when this works. Could you do the next slide, please? And it's timely for a number of things. One, the SACOG board adopted your strategic plan back in 2022. And so this is, as your staff were thinking about this item, actually a helpful kind of check-in point on some of the work to implement your strategic plan. And then two, it's really a look ahead as what we're learning and what more I think as an agency that we want to continue to learn. So first thing, you adopted a mission for SACOG to convene and connect to the region, right? For the region to be able to advance an equitable, sustainable, and prosperous future. And that mission is not something that's going to happen overnight, right? The work of this agency, you do long range plans and then you try to implement it through projects, and we know how long projects take, right? But ultimately that is what you're trying to do. And there are a number of, if you look to the strategic plan, which I wish I brought, there are a number of like competencies that are listed within that. And there are a couple that are related to this item of meaningful engagement. And one of them is integration, which is facilitating the collaborative action of our local governments and partner agencies. And then inclusion, which is including more of the region's communities in the work that we do so that all of them can actually benefit from and be able to contribute to the accomplishment of your strategic plan. So when we talk about meaningful engagement, we're talking about the process of reaching out to, talking to, listening to, learning from and with, and ultimately collaborating with member organizations of SACOG, the partner organizations, the community members, to create the project or program or to achieve the outcomes of that. And this definition is not listed in the strategic plan. It is something that has kind of come into meaning from all of the work we've done over the last several years to try to implement that plan. You also have an REI working group that had met in a few different cohorts since 2021, actually since 2020. And one of the things they had done actually just a year and a half ago is they said, like, what are the principles of meaningful, in this case, community engagement? What does it look like to not just give information out to, or to take testimony at a hearing, but actually to engage communities in the shaping of policy, of projects, et cetera. And this is just it's a photo from the day that they actually like all worked together. I think some of the directors here were there to participate in that. And then we have a list of some of those principles. You actually have them, all of them as an attachment, right? And your staff working with them have been really trying to take those to heart. And we've been learning a lot. I think both as the staff, but as an organization, I think we've been learning a lot about the benefits of meaningful engaging our members, how to do that better. And then like, we're still learning that, okay, there's still a lot more for us to learn. And that's really what we wanted to talk about today. So if I move forward to like, what have we done so far, right? Since the agency has embarked on this new, it's not a new anymore, but the strategic plan, right? One of the things you've done as a board is you started to do all the offsites, which was just mentioned and the reason for it, right, in the previous item. So the SACOG board has had its meetings in 3 different locations over the last few years, really to try to deepen an understanding of the unique issues, opportunities, right, conditions in every community within the region, and also understanding what the impact is of your decisions, right? Your investments, your policies within those communities. And so that is something that I think we can say has really helped to deepen the board's understanding, the discussions that have happened from all of that. Which is part of what I'm showing here. So we can move on here. The other thing that has happened is, in addition to the learning and the engagement that the board has been doing in these offsites, in SACOG's work, trying to take this concept of meaningful engagement, we've been doing that in a few different ways in particular and learning a lot from it. So one of those was in just developing the Engage, Empower, Implement grant program that, to remind you, is a new grant program that was created in the 2020 funding round. So, and your board made an award of funds a little over a year ago, right, in 2024. The process to develop that was to work with both local government and community-based organizations, because the idea of that program is to have really community members and local governments creating projects to address some need or some issue in the community. We learned a lot as we went through that, and then we tried to take that and kind of expand that and add that to the way that the Mobility Zones project was developed and implemented, so that we had communities in all 6 counties, that both the local government and partner agencies, as well as community-based organizations, really working together to both define what equity is in those counties, define the needs, and ultimately come up with projects. We were very inspired as staff in learning all of these things, and we actually applied that when we developed the Green Means Go grant program. To remind you, after 3 years of advocacy, we got funding from the state. We had to come up with the actual grant program to get that money out to communities. And so we had learned a lot from, okay, how we engage community organizations, how we engage and work with our members to shape that program, and we think differently, so that really every city and county in the region who wanted to had an opportunity to participate in that grant program. And then finally, last couple, I think what we learned as well from running the REI working group was the way that that was structured was really beneficial for the funding round working group. If you will recall, a few years ago, we had to completely redesign the funding program in response to a corrective action. And so a 6-county working group structured with board members, and then there was a staff level working group to feed into that. That was really, again, learning from the work that we had done, engaging with the REI working group. And I think at the end of that, we can say that the new program that was developed for the funding round, unanimously adopted by this board, feeling like this is something that all 6 counties are going to be able to participate in. And then lastly, you adopted it in November, the 2025 blueprint. Those local jurisdiction highlights that are included for every jurisdiction, again, that is a learning from all of this engagement that we have been doing, is how can we further bring into the region the identity of all of the local jurisdictions that make it. So these are the things that we have been learning over the last 4 or so years, right? Since we've really been digging into the strategic plan implementation. And so looking ahead into 26, what is the theme that we're going to have ahead of us, right? So obviously the offsite board meetings will continue to be an important place to understand the impact of SACOG's investments and understand the nuances of all the different places within this region. We are also working on, for the board workshops that are going to cover different policy issues you'll take action on. So housing and affordability, transit, mobility, transportation safety. We are trying to work on, when we bring that to you, also examples of meaningful engagement that has led to robust solutions and positive outcomes. And what we hope will be able to happen is we are bringing to you decisions that you need to make, that you will also challenge us to ask us, right? How have our local agencies, how have our partners, how have any community groups been meaningfully engaged in the development of this recommendation that's coming before us? And then finally, we want to, as your staff, let you know that as we look ahead to implementing the blueprint and we are retooling all of our programs, we are trying to make sure that when we design those, that we can identify and work with the affected organizations to really have them help us shape them, which is a tall task ahead of us, but that is what we are hoping to accomplish. Finally, so that's what's looking ahead. That's a lot of the theme that you'll see in our engagement with you as a board. We have loads of questions for you. You don't have to answer all of them, but we wanted to share these with you just to really kind of get some feedback from you, so that we can, again, continue to learn and hopefully become more effective in how we serve the communities in the region. Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't.
Okay.
So you want us just to provide you with some
Yes,
feedback?
right.
Okay.
Yes, please. That's what this is.
All right.
So,
No, this
okay.
is it. The end of the slideshow too.
Set, go, we're ready. All right, questions. We'll start. I think Director Soon have this. You were up first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First, I want to just commend you, Casey, James, and your whole team, because I think what we saw with this recent adoption of the blueprint, that the amount of engagement that was done, I think you guys, and we talked earlier about the world tour of board meetings around the region. I think that's excellent. But so I always look like, okay, what can we do better next time, you know? So that's where my mind's coming from. So it was a great work what you guys did. And what I saw at the Blueprint press conference, it was great to see Valley Vision, Hispanic Chamber, Cal Asian Chamber. But you know what I thought about, just because of Casey, what you were speaking about, what I didn't see was the local Rotary from Carmichael or West Sac or Elk Grove. So I think we can go deeper in, which I think it would be awesome if you had triple the audience next time, right? Because all the people you outreach to. So there's more, I think there's more mainstream organizations, people that are very engaged in all our respective communities, and everyone here, I'm sure, can tell you those organizations and those individuals. I think we all have individuals too. And so they can be excellent advocates too for the Blueprint. So I would encourage that. It's something that I see the examples of specific or examples in our own community. Something in our community that I'm proud of. One was our tax measure, a successful 1 cent tax measure that we passed. And we're coming up on a decision about a permanent homeless shelter location. And the interesting thing about, you know, the taxing is one thing, it passed, right? That was the victory. The interesting about the homeless shelter location is that, and I'm really proud of our staff have done this, the amount of outreach that they've done, the conversation isn't about whether we should have a homeless shelter. It's around where, but nobody is, you know, it seems we've overcome this hurdle about the, you know, the need for one. So I just an example, I think that if we start doing outreach to a lot of the, I'm calling it mainstream, but you know, the folks like the Rotaries and things like that, I think is a great opportunity to educate those people, those folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was,
Dr. Caldwell.
yes, I was just going to say, you know, when you ask what information do you look for to know that meaningful community and partner engagements happened, and first things that come to my mind are collaboration and representation, really, right? I mean, if you, especially on something that's controversial, you know, and that's when you know that you've been successful in that, and because you have collaboration and representation. So just answering that question for you. But I agree with, you know, Director Soon, your suggestion that you kind of get into the weeds a little bit, because there are groups that are, you know, specific to our own jurisdictions, or individuals that really carry a lot of weight. And I know that we think about that at the local level when we have controversial items or, you know, something far reaching, is really identifying all of those stakeholders that are gonna, you know, that will either we know will be supportive or are gonna make a fuss. And you know, people say, well, we don't want to invite them because they're going to just, you know, they're just going to kick this, you know, to kingdom come. They're going to be really against it. And I said, well, those are the people you want at the table. Get them in now, get them early and every time, because that's how you hopefully get that collaboration and they become part of the solution. So, you know, and I think we've done a tremendous job. I mean, I know we've talked about this as a board, a lot about the community engagement that we've done for all of our projects. And so I think, we've done a great job, but just my 2 cents on the question that you asked there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Vegas.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you for the work. I think this is incredibly important to kind of align the work that we're doing with the mission and with the competencies. I would maybe emphasize and underscore, and then maybe take it a step further with what Director Soon said, and that is just if I think back with what I know, which is a very small amount of work that went into the blueprint, I would encourage us to not just do a one and done, present it to the region, but I would take advantage of the opportunity that all of us, the entire board was very engaged on multiple levels, but it started with a lot of public outreach. And the very first meeting that I went to, there were hundreds of people there and putting a lot of meaningful information on the table around what was framing the kind of at the outset of what this blueprint was. And so I would suggest to the chair that we think about doing something again, but really emphasizing, and as I just kind of penciled down, so there's multiple jurisdictions, multiple resident meetings, the number of hours, the number of, key components that were built into the blueprint plan, what SACOG does, what it doesn't do as it relates to bringing in multiple jurisdictions. And so I would encourage, I think this is it's going to be our North Star for the years to come. And I would suggest that we not just do a one and done with maybe the Valley Visions and the Hispanic Chambers of the world, but the non-traditional folks who are oftentimes asking questions or wondering what's happening in the region when there's things happening in Sacramento or in Rockland, but that we serve as a voice for what is to come because of all the work that we've already done. And I think it shows, frankly, that we can work together to get stuff done. And that in and of itself is significant. So I just, for what it looks like, I don't know, but I think in the coming year, given that this is the first kickoff year, we ought to think about how we celebrate that, for lack of a better description, and think about what that looks like, bringing in some of the non-traditional stakeholder groups. So, anyway, but nicely done. Thank you. I think this is critically important.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Dr. Excuse me,
think
Director
our-
Sander.
Lots of challenges in this space, and we've come pretty far as an agency since when I first arrived here. But I still think it's important to throw some of those challenges out on the table. It's become an expectation, I think, that government do community engagement, but often it's just those 2 words are used and sort of precious little thereafter. It might mean literally, I think someone suggested it's not circulating an agenda of what's on your meeting. That's not community engagement. I think if I want to measure, how good we are at that, are we reaching those communities that don't naturally want to interact with us, right? Because of a power imbalance, or because of our horizons are so long, or it's so abstract what we do, or they don't understand it, or they're sort of constitutionally almost opposed to engaging with government. So we see it in communities in Rancho Cordova that might be refugee communities, for example, or business people who view government as something to get the heck out of my way, certainly not something to partner with, right? And then on the other hand, you have organizations that are totally tied to government. Their survival depends on government. All their future is government. So when I look at these community engagement, I'd like to think that we sort of keep track of the ones that are dependent upon us or feel linked to us, but really work on those that are kind of resistant to us to see if we can get useful, meaningful data out of them. And that also means that you don't go in and say, well, we got 3 options you can choose from. This one's crazy expensive. This one's stupid cheap. And then there's this one. That's not really engagement either, right? You gotta sort of meet them where they are at their energy level and their information level and find the best advice you can for us as a board from that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love the comments. It's interesting because I'm sitting here thinking what we'd done at the city years ago. We doubled our notification distance, because everybody complains when a project's going and the sign's this big, and I didn't hear. And just because it's so hard when you put it out on here's the agenda. People, if you don't come look into it, they're not checking my website. It has helped a lot to go, well, I didn't know, to go, well, we've doubled what's legally required for our notification. We came out to your meeting. We have to go the extra mile to do that. So I love what you're thinking. I was so impressed with how many people you got to come to see our blueprint presentation. But, and I hate it hadn't worked to everybody, but I think some targeted places to get out to, I think would be really helpful. As always, some of us, we say, oh, well, the feds make us do this, or we blame stuff on the state, or quite frankly, coming from here, we blame stuff on Sacramento. Sacramento made us do this. This is a really good opportunity for us to get that out to everybody and say, we're working as a team here. So I do like the idea of, let's get it out to some other presentations. And it may be us sitting there. It might not be anybody else that come, but we got to start making that effort to do this. And I think it may be able to tie it into these site visits. If there's some way that we could do that there, because we are going out to strategic places, maybe that's how we tie it in.
Through the chair. So I know one just minor example of kind of getting in the weeds and doing outreach was Rotary. And I just wanted to share that when we were first starting the blueprint, James actually came to my Rotary group in South Yuba County and did speak about it. So it was excellent. So anyway.
Any other feedback you need from us?
No, this is great. This is very helpful. Thank you so much. And look forward to the topics and activities that we presented in this presentation. And we have a lot to work with here. Thank you. Anything you want to add?
And maybe just in conclusion, and Casey set this up, I think, really nicely, but we are going to be coming back to you again this year, I think, with a theme here, right? So this is, again, not a one and done. We've really been trying intentionally to reset in some ways how we work, right? With our, as Casey said, our local government members, our community-based organizations, and figure out what does it mean, right, to have more meaningful relationships. So you establish, you all know this. This is what you live every day, right, as a local elected official. Coming up in March, you're going to be taking up, the board will be taking up approval of the mobility zones funding. If you remember, that was a federal raise grant, and we went from many to fewer to now, I think it'll be 6 pilot projects. And those are examples where actually community-based organizations have really been driving that process. And we've learned a lot of really interesting things there. So stay tuned on that one. Again, as Casey said, your board workshops, I think we're really looking for, especially on topics like housing, right? How have communities and neighbors who sometimes can be, against things, but how have residents been able to shape some of the projects? So another sort of consistent theme. And then just finally, as sort of a reminder in all of this, and maybe mobility zones is sort of an interesting flip the pyramid on its head example. But typically speaking, and if you've been on the board for a while, you know this, we are not looking to come into your communities without you, right? We're not going in and really doing the direct, we're not going to let Rancho Cordova know, but we're going to be showing up on a Tuesday night. So in many ways, again, this is partly developing partnership with your staff, right? Trying to figure out how we can support your local governments as we kind of experiment. And as we experiment, some of these things are going to be really interesting ahas, and others, which we definitely have examples of, are not going to work. They're going to fail. But stay tuned. So there's a lot more to come this year on this theme, but wanted just to at least surface it for you. And again, the REI working group, for those of you that are engaged, that done really great work, very helpful work the last couple of years to help us shape a lot of this, which is a great example as well, right? Of those of you as board members actually partnering with community organizations and leaders from different, sectors. That is something else I think we've discovered over time, is mixing some of you up and working groups with other non-governmental leaders is a great combination. So stay tuned, more to come.
I love the communication piece. I just was sitting here thinking, we've all seen recently on social media some very mixed information about a vehicle mileage. Holy moly, what do you have? Somebody brings up that let's look at it and let's start studying, and it's turned into, let's stop, this is coming. So I think that's a perfect example of why we need to do this, because, so we can get that, an education and make people understand that we're actually really out looking for input.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, with that, I know it's an information item, but do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Well, in keeping with our meaningful engagement, next up is our collaborative planning series with SACOG and our special districts, and our own Mia Lopez is going to be our presenter.
All right. Good afternoon, committee members. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time this afternoon. My name is Mia Lopez. I am the Public Information Officer here at SACOG, and I am with Dane sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, or that one too. Sorry, I got them both now coming up. Yeah. Good afternoon, committee members. So my name is Dane Wadley. I'm the Director of Field Operations for the California Special Districts Association. So proud to have partnered with you guys on this thing, which Mia will start, and then I'll come back after that. That's right.
Thank you. So as you mentioned, Collaborative Planning Series was a program that SACOG partnered with the California Special Districts Association last year, a series of in-person and online events. This was a program developed as part of Green Means Go using money from the Dr. Pan earmark. And Green Means Go, with that program, we're trying to address the challenges of infill development and the complexities of infill projects. And we developed this program to connect special districts, cities, and counties so that we could learn and explore those complexities and build relationships for the future. As you can see up on the screen, we had about 40 participants who came from agencies all over the region. Cities, counties, and special districts participated to take place in the program. And I will, our program goals for this was to inform, inspire, and connect. We wanted to share information across agencies and improve their understanding of the challenges and opportunities, especially for infill. We wanted to spark new ideas for collaboration on our shared regional goals, and we wanted to connect with one another across city, county, and special districts for these conversations. And one of those examples that we did, Dane will provide a overview.
Right. Yes, there's the picture right there. But one of the things that, you know, as you guys know, special districts are, of course, local service specialists. And so we're kind of very hands-on and you know, running projects and infrastructure, et cetera. So our default when we're doing events like this is to try to get people out into the field, out into the districts to see what's going on. And kind of the you know, number one tour stop that we wanted to do and that we did for this program was the Sacramento Area Sewer District. So that's actually what you're looking at right there at the Echo Water Regional Facility. Obviously out in Elk Grove, as you know, giant facility with the treatment and collection, et cetera, of the sewage, et cetera, right? So we took the group out there, looked at the, you know, the control room and basically the entire facility and the process that's really important in that facility of the, you gotta get my acronym right, the biological nutrient removal process, which is, you know, quite important in the industry. And so then went through the like I said, went through the laboratories and just basically showcased what the special district, what they did. And you know, how they provide the service, and to, as we know, a very regional facility for the area. And I think highlighting the, you know, obviously the importance of special districts in terms of that being that local service specialist, and then tying it to, you know, your guys' mission, of course, regionalization, et cetera, was really what we were trying to highlight. And then, so after we did that tour, we continued on with one of our smaller parks and recreation districts over in basically southeast Sacramento County, the Southgate Recreation and Park District, one of their new community facilities or community parks. Just to, you know, again, a partnership I know with the county as well on some things, but highlighting, you know, obviously recreation and park opportunity for the community in, you know, in that part of the in the county as well, brand new facility and just a great asset. So those were the things, and I think just getting back to one of the points about kind of bridging the knowledge of special districts. Again, we find that when getting individuals out to see special districts and the work that they do is the best way to do that. And so that was why we went with the tour option. And I think it was quite successful and quite informative from all the attendees. And then we kind of merged that with, look, a little bit of classroom instruction too, if you will, in terms of like a webinar. We're just kind of going through the background of special districts and what they are, how they're funded, how they're created, et cetera. And of course, a lot of the regional aspect, because again, of course, special districts have a lot of regional impact too, not just here in Sacramento, but in other areas of the SACOG region. So.
We heard a lot at the end of the program. Every interaction, we wanted to give a lot of time for feedback and discussion and shared learning. And so at the end of our 4-part series, we asked, what was the takeaway? What did we get out of this? We heard that the special districts, cities and counties all really liked the opportunity to collaborate. They liked the opportunity to have these discussions together. They expressed interest from special districts, exploring more grant opportunities and partnerships into the future. And they expressed that they really want to continue exploring and having these conversations about the challenges and opportunities to bridge and help solve some of the regional challenges that we have. So what's next? We are going to continue our relationship with the Special Districts Association and special districts. Myself and a few colleagues were actually going out this week in a couple days to the Gold Country chapter meeting to present on SACOG, on Green Means Go, and some of our work. And so we're just going to continue having those conversations and looking for other opportunities to partner into the future with special districts. So with that, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think if I just may add, it was certainly a key point that came from the special district side is the interest to partner with cities and counties on the front end of projects, so that we're all kind of at least knowledgeable about what's maybe going on and how we can work together at the beginning, as opposed to, sometimes if someone doesn't know about it, then it's like, oh, I'm trying to play catch up here kind of on the back end with an infill project or, whatever else may be occurring. Having that conversation at the beginning we find very helpful. And that was one of the things that kind of came out of it again from us, our members, was we really appreciate SACOG and obviously CSTA working together to bring these individuals together, because of course there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion and, sharing cards, et cetera, in the room to facilitate some of those conversations. And to that end also too, I just want to thank SACOG on behalf of CSTA as well. James, Mia, Dov, Christina, Gabby. It was just a great team to work with. And obviously we appreciate, you guys using some of the funding as well to help do this and to reach out to us and to engage with us. And certainly meant a lot to us as an association and certainly to our members too. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, Dr. Sun.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Dane. Just for information, half this committee sits on that sewer district board.
Right.
So but one of the things, and because I'd forgotten about this, but a few years ago, we had talked about how do we make the housing permitting system more affordable. And so Director Sander was leading the effort, but we came to our top of our mind was that, we have all these city fees, but like sewer district fees was completely different, right? Not ran by any of our respective boards. So I think you fill that gap actually to represent and can help, bridge that discussion. So appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, obviously it's an important part of, our fiscal operations too. And so
yeah,
happy to continue those conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Through the
Vice
chair, did you have pretty good participation from special districts across the region, or?
Yes, I can go back to that slide there.
I think
We have the full one. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah,
One
I
more.
missed that one.
Right. So, you can see there. So certainly El Dorado County, Yolo County, Sacramento County, of course, Placer, El Dorado. Don't think we had someone once from Yuba that they had to cancel it, at least from the special district side at the last minute. So certainly a little bit of outreach to do up in your neck of the woods.
Thank you.
I was just going to say that piggyback on that, I appreciate that it's not just the infrastructure, special districts, because you have Parks and Rec, cemetery districts are one that's important too. So definitely appreciate that as well. Community services districts, well, some of those infrastructure, but appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, and I appreciate what Director Soon brought up. That's one of the challenges we have is we've been trying to encourage workforce housing. And we've looked at our fees to say, what can we do as a city to address those fees? But now I have SP MUD and PCWA that we have to get into the fold to understand. We need your help to be able to make this happen. So I think that's really helpful. And I think you did an amazing job at describing your tour of the sewer district in the most classiest way. you could possibly. So thank you.
Classy sewer.
Yeah.
We do our
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
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 So, Madam Chair, I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with Dane on numerous of some of those agencies as well as El Dorado County. And he does a great job, and I think it's great advocacy to join with to fill those gaps as Darren was talking about. And the more information we can have, better off we'll be.
Yeah, I was going to point out, I'm long-term resident of the SACOG region. So yes, lived in El Dorado County for a number of years and worked with supervisor, currently a constituent of Councilmember Cavillo. So doing a good job. Thank you. Appreciate everything.
Hey, high praise coming from these two. So well done. Well, thank
Madam
you.
Chair, I was just gonna also say, I think that's a great list, but I would also encourage, dialogue with the community choice aggregates. So the CCAs like Pioneer or YOLO Clean Energy. I mean, others, that's another, to think about as well. SMUD.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation and I will bring it back. That is all of our information items today. Any announcements or anything else for the good of the order? All right, seeing none. This sounds kind of crazy, but our next meeting is Monday, May 11th, 2026. Doesn't that sound? Yeah. I like, especially considering I thought it was December. It sounds really far.